Hey guys, I'm back again for another review. Before I get started though, I wanted to thank you guys all so much for watching my recent video on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, if you got a chance to watch it yet. If you haven't, feel free to check it out. I worked very hard on it and really proud of how it turned out, so let me know what you think. In the meantime, I figure I'd bring out another review, as just recently I saw the newest DC movie, Blue Beetle. So, DC is at it yet again with another comic book movie, and being the dedicated fan I am for better or for worse, I felt obligated on seeing this. I will admit, Blue Beetle isn't a character I'm a huge expert on. I haven't read any of the comics, but am familiar with the character from appearances in other DC related stuff. Though from what I have seen, the character looked cool, and the movie had potential. Yes, believe me, DC has had a very spotty track record. You don't have to remind me. But given the projects that have been good that are DC adaptations in recent memory, I was still hoping this would be one of the good ones. Really, I only had one request. Please be better than The Flash. I know it's not hard, but good lord, just be better than that. Best DC movie since The Dark Knight, my ass. So, how is Blue Beetle? Well, it does tread on a lot of familiarity in the superhero genre, but admittedly, it manages to be a solid time that is enjoyable throughout. One thing that does stand out big time about this movie is the central Latino focus that is emphasized in this film. It is a main trait that the character is known for, and has been very popular with Hispanic audiences for that reason. So to see this character in a big movie like this is a decent win. It is seen even better here when you take a look at this cast themselves, and there are a good cast of characters played very well by some decent actors. Jamie Reyes, played by Xolo Maridueña, is very likable due to his dedication to his family, which is another main aspect that makes this an enjoyable watch. The film actually does a better job showcasing what made the first Shazam so good, more than the actual follow-up to Shazam from this year, as the main focus of the film is around Jamie and his family trying to handle the situation of him becoming a superhero. And what makes it so fun is seeing this character have a good dynamic with his family. The family dynamic might be seen as kinda cheesy for some, but the fact that family dedication is such a big part of Mexican culture, I don't think this is a bad way to go, especially when the rest of the family is very likable in this. I like the smack-talking sister, the caring grandma, the very supportive father figure, and even George Lopez, who I wouldn't call myself that big of a fan of. Even he had a few good laughs, being this crazy pot conspiracy theorist uncle. They're a very solid cast that do manage to be very supportive of Jamie, that managed to also be very entertaining in their own right. It's fun seeing them on the majority of this superhero adventure that also plays it relatively small. One big issue I had with some of the recent DC movies is that a lot of them tend to be too big for their own good. They just become overstuffed with CGI by the end, to the point where it's just a lot of mindless spectacle. And because we get so much of it now, it feels super repetitive. Even Shazam 2, while not as bad with this issue, still had this problem persist a bit here too. It just feels like most of these movies need to go all out on a big endgame style bombastic finale when they don't really need to. This film actually keeps it relatively low scale, as it's mostly dedicated to being in this futuristic city. It doesn't ever become Blue Beetle dealing with some world-ending event, but instead trying to take down a corporation from screwing over the lower class. It becomes a film about Blue Beetle essentially taking down gentrification, which, yeah, good evil to combat against. I think the fact it doesn't go too big on scale makes the focus feel more fixated on the family, which I highly appreciate. There's still a decent amount of action in this, and it's definitely one of the better DC films to feature action. For one, the suit is actually pretty cool. Not only comic accurate, but at points looks a little more practical than you would think. There are certainly moments of CG, but the suit does look very appealing, and makes me think that they really should just stick with more practical suits. It not only looks cooler when it's comic book accurate like this, but it's just nice to see something that's real instead of CGI shit. The fight scenes themselves are very enjoyable to watch, and they get better as the film goes on. That makes this film feel a little more refreshing than the average comic book movie. The downside with Blue Beetle is that, much like Shazam 2, this movie does tread on a lot of familiarity. It is a comic book origin story, and it still has a decent amount of the tropes you've seen in these kind of movies. There's still some CGI baddies, some handling of the power and other shenanigans you've seen in these kind of movies. It does them to a point where you kind of know where this movie is going to go ultimately. It does lead to some predictability, but I do feel the cast of characters do make up for it. Seeing their dynamic and it being so heavily influenced in Latino culture did make it stand out just a tad more. One last downside is also the leading villain played by Susan Sarandon. It's a similar issue I had with the villain of Guardians 3 at first, where the performance didn't quite work for me at points. Except where Guardians 3's antagonist I felt got a lot better over time and was still a strong threat, I'm not crazy about Sarandon's performance. It's not that I think she's a bad actress, and there are elements I like with her character, particularly how her lackeys are handled in a pretty refreshing way. The problem is the performance itself just feels kinda there. Like, she doesn't play it that over the top to where it's a fun villain with an expressive personality, nor does she command much of a presence here. She's just your typical evil businesswoman, and it's not like I can't see Sarandon pull it off, because she's a talented enough actress to do so. I just don't think this performance was her strongest. Outside of that, however, I felt Blue Beetle was an enjoyable time. It's not a massive event comic book movie, but it doesn't have to be. It's an entertaining film that does have a little bit of style to it that makes it not too bad in an oversaturated genre. I know the film hasn't been performing the best right now, but I genuinely hope this performs as well as the Pixar movie that came out the same weekend as The Flash, with some decent legs. Take it from me, if you have to see any DC movie coming out this year, I say Blue Beetle is your best bet. It's a solid effort that I'm glad got to see the light of day, of a lesser known superhero of Latino descent getting into the limelight, so take that for what it's worth. And I'm gonna give Blue Beetle a 7 out of 10. So those are my thoughts on Blue Beetle. What did you guys think about it if you happen to see it already? Comment below, let me know, hit that red subscribe button for more updates, and I'll see you guys again in the near future. Later.
Bro, it's like Batman stuff.
Batman's a fascist.
I just wanna rap.